Parks, Library, and Arts Committee meeting, and present are Chair Van Rees, Bradford, Hager, Hauser, Henderson, and Vice Chair Stiles. With that, we have a quorum. We have a handful of resolutions to discuss, starting with Resolution 2021-1020 from Taylor, Porterfield, Van Rees, Murphy, Welsh, and Hancock. Accepts a grant from the Metro Historical Commission Foundation to the Metro Historical Commission to assess the historic concrete structures in Centennial Park. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion about this that you guys have? You have any questions about it?
Was this before or after the incident in Florida that brought this up?
This has been in process. I think the idea is to kind of come and assess the structures.
Chair, that was going to be my question, dovetailing into that to Larry. But I know there's a band shell, but also concrete is the Parthenon. So I just didn't know if the Parthenon was included in that, or I was just wondering which structures were included.
There's not a list of structures. We of course can ask for them. And happy to do that. There was some review over some of the statues, but they're not specifically saying statues. They're saying concrete structures.
I was just wondering which structures they were.
I think that
they can include that old amphitheater they got there, but it's concrete.
Yeah.
That one. We got the shell.
I'm sorry, I'm having some PTSD because I was at the Shakespeare Festival from 07 to 09 and.
Yes,
that band shell just kind of like a little. Okay, I'm okay now.
Is it historic now because it's like mid-century modern?
It is absolutely mid-century modern.
Yeah, it's like the 50s. But then the concrete, like literal shell, right? There's one of those that's much older.
Then there's the USS Nashville.
Right, the front prow of the boat.
The boat, yeah.
So I'm just wondering if it's those, kind of the shell, the boat, or if it actually includes the Parthenon would be my question.
I would not think it would include the Parthenon because they're doing their own thing.
Right, that's kind of what I thought, because they have a different kind of funding.
They've got the Friends of the Parthenon.
Right.
But I have no problem at all just asking for a list of such
not something obviously specific
structures.
To pass in it. We're just interested to know.
Perhaps this is separate from what they said they were reviewing before.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
Any objection? All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody against. We have, how many are there? 6 here? 6 favor, 0 against. Okay. 2021-1024 Porterfield, Van Rees, Welsh, and Taylor accepts a grant from the Tennessee Arts Commission to the Metro Arts Commission for funding to nonprofit organizations to nurture artists, arts organizations, and root supporters in Davidson County.
So moved.
Second.
Having been involved in some of these transactions, a lot of the TAC grants that Metro gets are pass-through grants that allow us to do some of the Thrive and et cetera. So,
perfect. 100% on board.
Do you know if we ever get a report back to say what was that?
We do, yeah. Of course, any of the funding that happens is competitive funding, and so those that apply for it go through a process as to if they're going to get the grant, and then the process from the Metro Arts Commission to help follow up how they used it, which is a responsibility of Metro to inform Tennessee Arts Commission, so there's lots of redundancy in regard to that. Any of the grants that are funded through Metro Arts are available to look at on their website to see what they funded in the past and what's currently underway. So that information's available to the public as well.
Okay.
See no other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody against. And finally, we have 2021-1025 Porterfield and Van Rees accepts a grant from the National Coalition for Arts Preparedness and Emergency Response to the Metro Arts Commission for training and travel expenses for virtual and in-person meetings for attendees of the NACPERS of Crisis Analysis and Mitigation Coach Training Pilot Program.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have not received additional information on this, but obviously it's the acceptance of a grant to get more training. So I think that's a bit of a no-brainer, but I would love to hear perhaps at our next meeting a little bit more information about what they hope to learn. Does that
Same.
Sound
I'd like
fair?
to know what the
Yep.
crisis analysis and mitigation
I know that
training is.
some of the stuff that I've been able to kind of delve into online in the last year that I wouldn't have before includes a global analysis of how other cities worldwide are dealing with crisis, and realizing that although we may be prepared for tornadoes or for floods, or that we perhaps weren't prepared for things like pandemics. And so what happens if all of the above happens at once? Geez, we have no experience in that at all. So I think that that may be part of the training, is kind of learning how to deal with crisis situations. And so we will find out more. So I will be asking them for that information. And with that,
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, what the goal is. 'Cause I mean, it could be any kind of different ways. It could be for the mental health of the folks. It could be violence reduction. It could be all sorts of things.
right. Yeah, I think that we're going to continue to see a proactive engagement of our arts community in de-escalation opportunities as well, just as we've seen them get more involved in the Justice Center and some of the arts engagements that they've done, is to do more, let's paint a mural instead of have a fight
Have
situations.
different ways of.
So,
Wrestling.
that's a little bit of a rabbit chase. I don't know if, I'm just assuming that a lot of that discussion would be happening at conferences of this nature. The important thing is that someone else is going to pay for it. So that seems like a good idea.
Right, yeah, that always is a good.
So, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes today's agenda. I want to remind everybody that July is National Parks Month, Parks and Recreation Month. And so parks around the country are making sure that everyone knows in their respective cities, townships, and haunts how important parks are. And of course, we are of no objection to that. There was in your inbox, and it's also online, a Parks and Recreation Month of activities. So you can just pick a day and go do that thing. And so one thing that I wanted to bring out to you, I believe that there is birding available July the 7th, birding at Beeman. So Beeman Nature Park, 9:30 a.m. And so I know that our council member here has done birding before, so we'll make sure that he knows about that. So lots of good things. So make sure and spread the word that it is Parks and Rec Month. Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask, I know that you had hosted prior to budget season, that was great, kind of anticipatory talk with Director Odom about their budget. And I participated in that. I was not able to attend the budget hearing particular to parks. And so I know that there are staff positions that we have added, and I wondered if we could just kind of request an update at some point this summer, because I know there are challenges in kind of in the labor market in general, and whether that is in that maintenance space, the extent to which they were able to kind of hire with existing positions as we came to the end of the budget year, and now with more positions, whether that be in maintenance or parks police around greenways and some of those enforcement. Those are some questions that I'm getting from constituents. So I would just be interested to know how they're doing on getting those filled.
That's great.
And just kind of understanding specifically, it's kind of similar question we had in Public Works, 42 positions, but specifically like what exactly?
Yeah.
Like how many right-of-way maintenance, how many, so like that kind of granular level of detail, I would really love to hear about.
Okay.
Within, whatever Director Odom thinks would be most, if that's August, maybe it's September, I'm not sure where, but
Sure.
at your discretion.
Yeah, I was able to this afternoon attend the Parks Board meeting, and she did give an update to them that was not as detailed, but she has that information. So I'll be able to, of course, they were asking as well as to kind of how that was all going.
Okay.
So
That's good to hear,
so we'll be
yeah.
able to do that. One of the reasons I was there, I have submitted as the chair of this committee and in conjunction with the Minority Caucus, request for the naming committee to consider renaming the Public Square Park Diane Nash Park. So it would
that's still in
remain,
process. I
so
thought that
the
had
process
fallen.
is
Okay.
underway, so I was waiting until the new fiscal year to kind of do that. The board did approve the renaming at Hadley. So, so that was approved today, so we'll,
that Hadley
we'll see.
Hillard now?
Yeah, Hadley Hillard now, so they'll be doing, as you can imagine, congratulate, Sharon Hurt on her due diligence in regard to that, but in the process of that, really helped us, kind of, with the naming committee, set up some rules. And with Ms. Nash being alive still, there's a process, and so, because, the rules were that not a single individual, could request it, but that a group could, and so, working with the Minority Caucus as well as the Parks, chair to ask for that, it'll go to the naming committee. Metro Historic has prepared a document describing why it would be appropriate. There'll be a comment period for the public, and then the Parks Board will decide. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure is that people understood that one public square, the address remains one public square. It would just be the park. And I was just talking to Tim Walker. They have not replaced the plaque on the courthouse, and so this would allow us an opportunity to be able to retell that story in a way that's appropriate with the renaming.
Is it coming to this month's historical?
No, it'll have to go through the naming committee and then back to the Parks Board, and then the Parks Board will decide thumbs up or thumb down.
That's a subcommittee of the Parks Board,
Yeah.
Okay.
the naming committee.
So we're looking at a couple months.
So it won't be a council action, but it would be something that we would all want to pay attention to.
Would it
Certainly,
be,
yes.
is the proposal like Diane Nash Park at Public Square or something like that keeps them kind of paired up, or?
They can make that decision
Yep.
as what makes sense. We just don't want anybody to feel like they were having to change their name. And the courthouse will be at one public square.
Understood. Appreciate that. And I had tuned in, Chair Van Reese, but the agenda went much faster than I thought from home, Channel 3, to see our colleague Sharon Hurt speaking kind of at the conclusion. I had tuned in particular to an application regarding greenways for electric bikes.
Yes.
Type 1, which is
Yes.
pedal assist, right? So it's not like you flip a switch and the bike is zooming.
I was
It's sort of,
wondering
you're
about-
building some
Yes.
energy in your battery when you pedal, and then it just gives you a little help to get up a hill.
Yes.
They're really great for our seniors,
Yes.
families of multiple abilities. But given some of the challenges with scooters and otherwise, it's somewhat of a difficult conversation. So I was glad to hear that they deferred that for the consideration of the Greenways Commission. But I
Yes.
joined several colleagues in a letter
Yes.
asking the Parks Board support for that. But I think there will be kind of an ongoing discussion,
Yes.
and I encourage us all to look at what peer cities have done.
Yes.
I found several resources online about what Denver and other equally hilly cities have done in this space, because e-bikes are really taking off.
So are
and,
all
yeah.
e-bikes this assist? They're not just.
No.
different
There's
levels.
various
So
levels.
the
Yeah.
B-Cycle was at the board meeting today.
They were the applicant, right?
And they,
Yeah.
you remember B-Cycles. So the idea is that whenever you go to rent your bike, that you'd have a choice as to whether or not to do a manual one or the e-bike. And those would be limited at not going faster than 15 miles an hour. And the seniors that I've talked to, they're excited about it. I know that it would allow me an opportunity to access the Greenway that I've never had before. We've
Is
just
there a
been
way
joined by
to-
Mr. Syracuse, who
Is there-
rides the
Yes.
Greenway like a monster. So.
He goes the speed limit, it says on your right, and uses all those courtesies.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
It's like, how fast can you go? How fast have you Do you have any idea how fast you're going?
Not faster than the speed limit, right?
Councilman Sirleaf? I'm on a mountain bike right now, so I'm not going that fast. It's all torque.
Well, we've concluded our agenda. We started talking about how it's Parks Board month, and then started talking about other things to keep our radar on, which
Right.
I really
E-bikes.
appreciate you bringing that up, because
I'll take a
we'll see
bike
it.
that'll help me ride at any point.
Particularly when you don't have to buy the
It's too much work.
$2,000 bike.
Is there a way, you mentioned that the e-bikes, but we're not to go over 50 miles an hour. Is there a way to rig them up
like a
so they
governor.
can't
You
go
can
over?
you can go fast. She said you can go faster than 50 miles an hour, but that's up to your ability to do so, because it's a 60-pound bike. So.
So the motor itself would not necessarily take off and go 30
No,
miles
That's
an
not
hour?
how it works. No,
Okay,
it
I
doesn't.
just-
It's not kind of,
I'm not
you're
familiar
not
with
flipping
them.
a switch and having it zoom you at a.
Yeah, no,
I just know anything that's left up to the discretion of an individual to necessarily be a good citizen is a lot
As it
to
is
ask.
currently. I mean, there are people on, Councilman Syracuse will tell you, there are people on regular bikes right now that are going over 15 miles an hour
Right,
on our
yeah.
greenways
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
And so that's already a challenge. And so I think, what you're hearing from the Greenways Commission in their concern is, and further colleagues I would point out to us, we have not designed our greenways to be wide enough.
No.
Yes,
And
I would
so,
agree.
from an engineering standard standpoint and acquisition, like we've got to, for all these modes,
More- yeah.
And then, there's just basic courtesy. I mean, I know, we all know what it feels, right, when somebody just comes up behind you and doesn't say on your right and just zooms right past you. That's not a good
Or
feeling.
hit you
And it
going
messes
fast.
my dog up too,
Right.
so that's.
And that's why I'm interested too, from a funding standpoint, with Parks Police to have bicycle police on our greenways to be kind of monitoring that, educating around that. I think that will, and there's a higher level of accountability then a little bit. So hopefully those things can come in alignment and have people will have some comfort
You get a
about it.
speeding ticket riding your bike, Jeff. Well, with that, I
Thank you.
will go ahead and conclude the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I realized we were still.